Title: Never expected my fiancé to cheat 2 days before our wedding. Here is how it all went down. So I've told this story on Reddit a few times, but figured I would share it with you all here to get it out of my system. For reference, I'm now 31 male, but this happened in 2014 when I was 26 and my ex-fiancé was 25 female. Let's call her Barb. We met in college and dated for 3 years prior to our engagement, with a wedding date booked by the 4th year. Neither of our parents are well off financially, and she was attending grad school, so the financial responsibility fell on me, which totaled $20,000 that was paid in full 4 days prior to the wedding. Leading up to that nightmare of an evening, we had our typical mid-20s relationship issues with bouts of poor communication, excessive drinking on weekends, and an occasional fight over trivial bullshit. Aside from that, we had a great relationship and spent a ton of time together figuring out post-college life and planning for our future. As I said earlier, the wedding and reception venue cashed my check 4 days before the wedding, and the contract stated this was non-refundable. Over 120 guests were confirmed, a couple dozen from out of state, tuxes and bridesmaid dresses were fitted and paid, and everything was falling into place. Now let's get to the inevitable shitstorm of events that you're all interested in before I keep rambling. The night in question was a Friday evening in our new apartment that we'd moved into a few weeks prior, and we decided to have about a dozen friends over to pre-game and head out to the bars in town. Included in this group of friends was my buddy whom I've known since high school. We'll call him Ricky. Barb and I had spent a lot of time with Ricky over the last 3 years, and he was definitely one of my pals, which is generally awesome when your significant other gets along with people in your social circle. The night started at a local hookah lounge that was BYOB, so by the time we left there, a 1.5 of Jameson and 30 rack of Ewingling were gone, and everyone was buzzed. The next 3 hours were spent between 2 to 3 bars that resulted in the entire group devolving into a drunken, belligerent mess. Once the bars closed, most people went home with the exception of myself, Barb, Ricky, and another couple who came back to our apartment for a nightcap. Once back at our place, the couple only lasted another 20 minutes before calling it and making their way home, so I was left with Barb and friggin' Ricky. Earlier in the night at the hookah bar, I noticed Barb checking her phone more than usual, and simultaneously Ricky checking his phone after she would lock the screen. I almost put 2 and 2 together, but why would I worry about them planning anything shady just 2 days before I was supposed to marry this girl? Back at my house, I was fairly sober and noticed all the booze was gone, so I was contemplating picking up a couple of 6-packs from a local spot that stays open until 3 a.m. Barb and Ricky were definitely on the liquor and tanked, but there was no reason to suspect anything sketchy would occur if I ran out for 20 minutes. Once in my car and preparing to exit my apartment complex, I got a sinking feeling in my gut that something wasn't right, and it completely freaked me out. So I called my best bud who just finished his shift, and he agreed to be picked up and join me on the beer run and accompany me back to the apartment. After grabbing some Bud Heavies and returning home, we walked up to the sliding glass door that led to my living room that had a sectional to the immediate right. We opened the door, took 2 steps inside the apartment, and my ex-fiancé was completely topless and mounted on Mr. Ricky fucking tonsil deep down each other's throats. The crazy part of the situation was neither of them appeared to notice that my buddy and I were 10 feet away watching their sloppy, drunken escapades. After 7-10 seconds of attempting to comprehend the current situation, I lost it, dropped the booze, threw her backward off Ricky completely topless, and landed 2 hard right hooks to Ricky's eye and cheek while he was still laying on his back with the most terrified look on his face. To put things in perspective, I am 6 foot 220 pounds and have played hockey my entire life. He is 5 foot 6, 140 pounds, and a runner. Immediately following the assault with my fist, Ricky started snoring, didn't know this was a thing, and was asleep for at least 5 minutes while I was losing my mind over the situation. So to cut to the chase, that night was a total shit show. I was watching Barb and Ricky doing their messed up, drunken dance down a hellhole of betrayal, and for a split second, I couldn't believe my eyes. My mind was racing, and in that moment, logic and pure rage were in a head-to-head battle, and I lost it. I started screaming at Barb, the words were raw and furious, and before I knew it, Ricky was slowly waking up. I wasn't about to let him stick around to add insult to injury. I remembered his brother lived nearby, so I grabbed my phone and called him up to get Ricky the hell out of my place before I knock his teeth out this time. Then in the middle of all the chaos, I called Barb's parents. They lived close enough to just walk over, and I needed them on the scene. I laid out the whole damn situation, how I caught them in the act, how everything was spiraling out of control. But instead of the shock or support I expected, they started pressuring me like it was too late to back out of the wedding. They've already cashed the check, the venue's booked, the plans are set and the invitations are sent, Everyone will be there. Let's talk it out. We can get through with this, they argued, as if that made the betrayal any less real. Now, I wasn't in that state normally. I mean, when I'm pissed off, my thoughts usually tumble out as raw, unfiltered anger, but this time was different, a whole new freaking level. Somehow, even with my heart pounding like a jackhammer, I managed to speak clearly. I told them exactly what I felt, that their daughter's betrayal wasn't something you could just brush off because money was already on the table. I argued logically and passionately, and even though they knew that I was right on every damn level, they still wouldn't budge. They wanted us to marry, trying to force a future that was built on lies and deception. In the end, I said a firm, resounding no. With that, they left, and Ricky's brother eventually took his guy away. I had no choice but to cancel the wedding, and just like that, I lost all my money, $20,000 gone, sunk into a non-refundable contract. I wasn't blaming anyone, the wedding planners, the venue, they all did their damn jobs. The contract was signed, sealed, and delivered. As if that wasn't enough, a couple of months later, layoffs hit my job like a freight train. I lost my position, had to pack up and move to a new town, and suddenly found myself drowning in debt with no steady income. For 3 grueling months, I did odd jobs just to scrape by, and there were nights I seriously considered giving up on everything. But life has a weird way of steering you right when you think you're done for. Eventually, I landed a stable job and started clawing my way back from the depths. Fast forward 5 years, and I managed to pay off every last dime of that crushing debt. Even more unexpectedly, I met someone. Someone who loves me for who I am, scars and all, and now it feels like I finally have a shot at a future that isn't defined by that horrific night. Recently, work had me back in my hometown for a few days. I was at a supermarket grabbing some stuff, sitting in my car about to head out when I saw her. There she was, Barb, looking like she hadn't slept in days, holding 2 heavy grocery bags and dragging a kid along. She looked 20 years older in that moment, completely broken. For a split second, a part of me wanted to jump out and say something, even though the old scars still stung, but these 5 years taught me that holding on to bitterness only makes you a prisoner of your past. I silently thanked her, weirdly enough, because her actions that night saved me from a lifetime of even worse misery. In that moment, I realized I'd found true love and a chance at real happiness. As I sat there lost in thought, I caught her gaze. At first she didn't recognize me, but then I saw it, that flicker of recognition, a silent understanding in her eyes. I gave her a small bittersweet smile and drove off, and as I pulled away, I saw a lone tear slide down her cheek. It wasn't about revenge, and it wasn't about bitterness. It was about closure, finally letting go of the past and embracing a present where I'm not defined by someone else's choices. The scars are still there, but they don't hold power over me anymore. Now I live humble, I live hopeful, and I'm ready for whatever the future throws my way. What would you have done if you saw your ex? Would you have confronted her or just moved on?